Um, Thank you. My name is Leo, and I'm a DACA recipient from Peru. And we're both part of mixed status families. So I feel personally connected to this issue, this crisis, because the fear of deportation connects us. The fear of not seeing my family again connects us. The fear of losing absolutely everything I have here connects us. But also because our resilience connects us. Mental health sometimes takes a back seat in our stories, and fear that it might hurt the narrative. As a DACA recipient, I've experienced trauma and I've witnessed violence. I suffer from PTSD and have fought suicidal tendencies my whole life. Living here as an immigrant is traumatic enough, but what the families at the border are experiencing is cruelty and torture. This crisis is part of a bigger picture. Mass incarceration and separation of our communities have all been created by corporations and paid politicians.
These private prison companies have been lobbying to keep our communities in prison and detention centers, profiting off our bodies. GEO Group is the second largest for-profit prison and immigration detention company. They are based here in our state right now in Boca Raton. They profit from putting our black and brown communities in cages, and it's time we expose them and the politician that facilitates this cycle. GEO Group gets paid by the state to cage people in their facilities and then make more profit off forced labor. GEO Group contributes to politician campaigns from both Democrat and Republican parties and pays lobbyists to influence the government. Legislators then create harder-on crimes and immigration laws to cage and dehumanize our communities. Black people and immigrants get separated from their families, locked up, and put into GEO private prisons and detention centers. This cycle must stop. Florida spends $2.3 billion taxpayer money every year on incarceration. This is a direct result of GEO Group lobbying to politicians. GEO Group generates at least $122 million annually from Florida alone. The 700 beds at the Federal Broward Transitional Center, which is owned by GEO and managed for ICE, generates $20 million a year.
Florida politicians take more money from private prison lobby than any other state in the country. Our own governor, Rick Scott, has taken more than $718,000 and $150,000 this year alone. Ashley Moody is a Republican candidate running for Attorney General here in Tampa. She has taken GEO money and is endorsed by 37 sheriffs across the state and our current Attorney General, Pam Bondi. We need to demand better out of our politicians and the people that represent us. We need to make sure that our elected officials and candidates sign the Freedom Pledge. The pledge should never take money for NRA and the GEO Group. And if you ever have, to donate it back to the community. We need to use this to hold our people accountable, our politicians accountable.
We need to demand Ashley Moody and Rick Scott to stop taking money from GEO Group and other private prison companies out there. We must put a stop to this cycle. ICE was created in 2003 and has done nothing but terrorize our communities since then. They have damaged our life, and it's time we abolish ICE.
The youth all over Florida have created a visionary agenda called the Freedom Papers. This is their vision for the future of Florida, and it should be our collective vision from now on. One of our freedoms, freedom of movement. By virtue of being born, each of us have the absolute right to find adequate housing, working, food, water, and a more full life. Alternatively, every person has a right to stay in their home should they choose to. Immigration is not a crime. None of us should be forced to move or forced to stay just to satisfy the greed of corporations who are waging war against our communities for a profit. It uproots our lives and destroys our families and communities. People have always had the right to move if they need to, and stay if they need to. This right doesn't end today. To move is to be free. To stay and have the right to return home is to be free. Thank you.